welcome back to Just One Question, which is almost always 1.5 questions, 2 questions, or more. But anyway, I am really thrilled to have Morgan Motsinger on this podcast because I was on her podcast a while back, and we had such a nice chat that I invited her to come to Just One Question, and promptly forgot that I invited. So this is a makeup chat here because I dropped the ball, and it's been longer than I intended. So Morgan, welcome. How the heck are you?
I'm so good. I'm so good. I'm bumping up against the end of the school year for my children and myself, which always makes me feel really excited because summer's just around the corner.
Nice. And as we were chatting earlier, you tipped me off that it's warm where you are right now, so it really does feel like summer. So that's great. Yeah, we had a spate of warm weather and then it left. But on to more important things. What are you excited about these days?
Well, other than what I just said about that my schooling is coming to an end, I'm going to be graduating with my Associates of Science, as you know, going back to school as a 40-year-old woman with 2 kids at home. So I'm excited to be finishing up this chapter and then continuing my studies in the fall in psychology and neuroscience.
Wow, congratulations. That's
Thank
phenomenal.
you. You know, I downloaded this app recently that it's called How Are You Feeling? And it gives you these little, you can set up how many pings it gives you during the day and checks in with you and asks, how are you feeling in this moment? And it asks, you know, what activities do you happen to be involved in? Who are you with right now? And it just asks you, how are you feeling? And I know that this is, you know, maybe like a pretty abstract out there concept of like, what am I looking forward to? But I am looking forward to continuing to practice presence in my life because things go by so quickly with my kids. Things are just, you know, they just keep, you're busy and you're trucking along and you're just going through life. And so I'm appreciating all of these moments where I am called back to the present moment, checking in with myself, seeing how I'm really feeling, and really being present in my life. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's something that every now and then the blur stops for a second and I look and I think, oh my God, where did those 10 years go? I'm still trying to figure out where my 30s went. And I realize objectively that raising kids was a big chunk of that. So I get what you mean. That really adds to the blur and to the sense of time rushing by. But there are moments when I say, I know I was here because my eyes were open and I was watching it all unfold in front of me, but I can't account for big chunks of that. And I'm just wondering, how could I have been more present? So it's wonderful to hear that you are figuring that out now. And you're an entrepreneur, you're a speaker, you're a podcast host, and you're a mother, as you told us. What of those things causes you to be the most present and the least present?
I think the things that cause me to be the least present are the things that are most mundane.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like the things that you just kind of have to do and you're not super excited about. It's the dishes, or it's the podcast editing, or it's the homework, it's the paper that I have to write that I'm not super excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all moments where I tend to try to escape whatever is actually happening in my life. You know, I tend to be more, I procrastinate more. I'm much more distracted with my devices. I'm on social media more. And it's those moments when I have to track that and say, okay, don't miss it, Morgan. Don't miss what's happening in the internal environment when I'm having to do these things that I'm not super jazzed about. But then also on the flip side, sometimes when I become very present to those end up being the times when I end up being most engaged in my life. So, you know, like if I'm doing something with my kids, an activity with them, and I'm not, you know, my mind is somewhere else. If I can continue to bring myself back to the present moment and I just notice what's happening right in front of me is when I can get more excited and grateful in my life to be able to have a gratitude practice in those moments. But yeah, I'm really excited about anything that happens to pique my curiosity. So anything that not only makes me more curious in the world, but also makes me more curious about myself. So any resistance that I feel come up in me, or any sense of wonder or awe, just being attentive to that, and being really curious about everything that's going on, that makes me feel really alive and aligned in my life.
That's wonderful. I remember when I was starting out as a grown up in the business world. I was working at the University of Virginia and started my job, and there was a period of time there where I had to figure out how to fill up the hours. Like, what was I going to
Mm.
do? And I sort of roughly had the idea, having been a graduate student before that. And I watched the professors. I knew what they did, but nonetheless, there was a period where I had a lot of time on my hands to sort of structure it any way that I thought was appropriate. And it strikes me that those kind of times today are can be, at least if you're not careful, instantly filled with virtual interactions of a whole variety of kinds, just beginning with social media, and how time filling those things can be. They can just suck it all up, the hours in between meetings, or between dusk and dawn, and
Mm.
if you I wonder how people find the time now to do those kinds of big structuring things, like figuring out what's important to do in your job and that sort of thing. Because it would be
Yeah.
so easy just to piddle away your time in the social media world. That's made it very easy for us, and very satisfying, because we get the little dopamine
Yep.
hit every time we get a like or a this or a that. So
We
it's
we
time
really
has really changed.
Yes, and we've really lost the skill of boredom,
Yeah.
and I've really tried to be intentional about this with my children. They're 12, almost 13 and 8. And when they come and tell me I'm bored, I
Mm.
say good. I say
Yeah.
good, because this is the time to introduce exploration and experimentation, and we lose that as adults because we have the flexibility to fill our time with all sorts of things. And so I do have to be very cognizant of the meaningless, kind of unintentional stuff that I'm stuffing into my day, and not leaving any room for being bored and just daydreaming and thinking, because I do think that is the times when we then start to ask those bigger questions about, what is my purpose? Do I actually like the life that I have? What things do I
Hmm.
want to do differently? How can I connect more intentionally on a deeper level with the people in my life that I care about? And it happens in those liminal spaces of boredom. And so we have to be really careful not to just, fill with all sorts of distractions.
Yeah, absolutely. In the summer, when I was a lad and I would complain to my mother that I was bored, she had the answer at the ready, which was, "You're not bored, you're boring." And
Oh, ouch.
yeah, so ooh, uh, and the implication I soon discovered was, go out and fill up that time with something. But you're right. The result was, I thought of something to do. I got creative with my time and learned how to fill up spaces in my time, learned how to daydream and think and plan and do all those things. And yeah, if you don't have any time to do that now, I don't know how you make sense of your life. I really don't. So it's a we're not the first ones to notice this, but it is a danger and a time sink in a lot of ways, to all that virtual stuff that promises us, um, that we never have to be bored again.
Right. I,
When
I read a quote that said, if you don't know who you are, the world will be sure to tell you, or something like that. And I think that's what happens in the boredom spaces where we would be asking those questions and rediscovering things about ourselves, is we have other people telling us who we are in those moments that, could be filled with curiosity instead.
That's
Hmm.
so true. Well, we could go on. I know you're a delight to talk to, and I would make it just 22 questions if I could instantly retitle the show, but we have limits and times, and I have to get off and do social media, as do you, as well as some other. So anyway, thank you very much for being a
Mm.
just one question. Good to see you again. Sorry it took me so long to get around to this. And Morgan Motsinger, everybody, check out her podcast, and her website, and all the virtual stuff will be in the the show notes beneath her name and picture, so you can have all that at your fingertips. Thank you for being on Just One Question.
Thank you, Nick.